The Harvey Weinstein trial continuing in downtown Manhattan. The man charged with 5 counts of sexual assault and/or rape, potential penalty life in prison. Our very own Jesse Weber has been there in the courtroom every day checking this thing out. Looks like a day to better be in the courtroom than outside on the street, but he is here nonetheless. Jesse, how's it going? Big things happen today, right?
Interesting day. We're now moving to the next chapter of this case. Both the defense and the prosecution have officially rested their cases, and now we are moving to the closing arguments on Thursday. We're going to hear from the defense, possibly by Donna Rotuno, and then on Friday by prosecutor Jonah Luzzi. On Tuesday, next Tuesday, we're going to get those final jury instructions to the jury, and then they are going to begin their deliberations. But I want to start right now with what we heard at the beginning of the day. We heard the last of the defense's witnesses, and this was a witness that we had actually heard about before. He was a friend of Jessica Mann, a man named Thomas, and he testified that back in the day in 2013, he took a trip from LA to New York City with Jessica Mann in order to attend a Broadway show. One of his clients, he works in the entertainment industry, got him Broadway tickets. So him and Jessica go to the DoubleTree. Now, as you know, Jessica Mann testified that she was raped by Harvey Weinstein at this hotel. However, Thomas, again, a defense witness, testified that on the morning, the breakfast after the alleged rape, Jessica Mann didn't appear to be exasperated. She didn't appear to be disheveled. Her complexion was normal. Her hair was normal. Everything was ordinary. Nothing was out of the normal. He said she appeared as she always does. And in fact, when she pulled him aside to ask if to let her know that she's going to stay in New York for an extra day with Harvey Weinstein, she didn't appear to be distressed or coerced in any way. They all had a breakfast together, him, her, and Harvey Weinstein. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Again, makes you wonder if she was physically, if she was raped by Harvey Weinstein, then showing no signs of being raped or sexually assaulted in any way a short time after, it's going to be a question for the jury to consider maybe why that happened. Now, under cross-examination, he was asked, and also by defense, he was very clear that he was appearing in court by subpoena, that he didn't want to be there. He's not a friend of Harvey Weinstein. He's not there to defend Harvey Weinstein, all to support his credibility. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor was trying to hint at the fact that perhaps Jessica Mann was subtly telling her friend Thomas that she didn't want to be there and was coerced, but that line of questioning ultimately was objected to and was sustained. But we heard from this one witness. Then the most dramatic moment of the day was Harvey Weinstein going to take the stand? And believe it or not, Harvey Weinstein went into the side room, the witness room, that was away from it was outside the courtroom. He had a conference with him and his attorneys where they discussed for about 15 to 20 minutes. We're all waiting to hear if Harvey Weinstein's going to do it. There were rumblings that Harvey Weinstein wanted to testify, but his attorneys didn't want it to happen. Well, after that period of time, he comes back into the courtroom, and Damon Sharonis, on behalf of Harvey Weinstein, says that he will not take the stand. He will not testify. And as we heard afterwards, we heard from a press conference from Arthur Aidala and Judah Engelmeyer, who is Harvey Weinstein's PR person or friend, that it just wasn't the right forum for him to speak out, and they believe the prosecution did not meet their case.
You know, that is a bit surprising, knowing the Harvey Weinstein we know as the persona he is. He kind of wants to do what he wants to do. And I'm sure it was quite the battle with his attorneys to convince him that testifying might not be in his best interest. But Jesse, I mean, you've been there every day, and you're the best kind of observer. You're also an attorney, and you can see the ebb and flow of this case. Do you think that Weinstein needed to testify, yes or no?
Absolutely not. First of all, we know the danger a lot of times where the defendant taking the stand. And here on Law and Crime, the majority of cases that we've covered where the defendant takes the stand doesn't work out so well for that person. Here, I believe the defense did a really strong job of cross-examining these accusers, presenting contradictory evidence, and at least raising the idea of reasonable doubt. What more could have Harvey Weinstein added? I think he would have complicated the case. He would have put his case in jeopardy. And then he would have been put in the hot seat by Jonah Luzzi. There's really no good that would have come from him taking the stand. This is not a self-defense case. This is not a case of whether or not he was using reasonable force or anything like that, where we've seen situations like that, where some defendant has to take the stand to explain his state of mind. There was no benefit. There was no benefit. And I understand Harvey Weinstein wants to, tell his side of the story. That's been a big theme here. But as Judah Engelmeyer and Arthur Idell said, this doesn't appear to be the correct forum for that.
Yeah, it is technically it's a he said, she said case, and now it's a she said, but I think the prosecution has some issues with the credibility of their witnesses. So give me your take on, remember, we only have two complaining witnesses here. I think Mimi Halle, Miriam came out much stronger than did Jessica Mann, but give me your take on the two complaining witnesses and the impact on the ultimate charges against Weinstein.
Michael, I agree with you. I think the Miriam Halle account is much more, is less problematic for the prosecution than Jessica Mann. Jessica Mann's testimony raised a lot of eyebrows in terms of her having a consensual relationship with Harvey Weinstein, her communications, her behavior afterwards. There just seemed to be a lot of issues about credibility and what was happening there. Miriam Halle alleges, remember, that Harvey Weinstein performed a forcible oral sex act upon her. Now, that is important because she was in a situation where she could have embellished. She could have made it worse for Harvey Weinstein, and yet she did not. And you have to think that that is a situation where it makes her more credible. A lot of the defense witnesses, a lot of their evidence has been against Jessica Mann, showing why she should not be believed. And we understand why. There's 2 counts of rape associated with that count. But criminal sex act that he's charged with, that's 5 to 25 years in prison. At this point, it's also going to be up for both sides to not confuse the jury. They heard an instruction about why these 3 Molyneux witnesses testified, but they have to understand that Harvey Weinstein is not being charged with respect to those 3 women. It's only the 2 complaining witnesses. Will that lead to a complication or anything like that in terms of what they ultimately decide? Who knows? But at this point, I think both sides are waiting. I think the jury is waiting to hear how both sides sum up their arguments in closings.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very controversial issue, this whole Molyneux pattern witness, because is it possible for a jury to separate in their minds what these witnesses are there to do versus those that are complaining and to have charges based on the complaints of Ms. Halle and Ms. Mann? It is a totally different analysis, but do you have to be an attorney to figure that out? It can be difficult on the jury. Let me ask you about the jury, Jesse. Do they seem relieved? Do they feel like, what's your sense of how they're handling this wrap-up of the case?
I think it's impossible to predict what a jury's thinking or how they're going. What is interesting to note is they have been very attentive during the course of this case. They've been taking notes. They've been very serious about what's been happening. There have been times when they've smirked at different points during cross-examination. They've looked up at the ceiling. But I have to imagine that they are relieved to now get a day and a half off. They are going to be fresh for closing arguments Thursday and Friday. Let's not forget, then they have this long weekend to consider the closings before they begin their deliberations on Tuesday. I'm not sure if that's the best way to handle that, but they are going to have a period of time between the closings and when they deliberate. So yeah. It's an interesting way to think about it, but who knows what's going on in their mind. I believe personally that they are waiting to hear the closings, and then they will decide their feelings about the case. Yeah,
I was just more concerned that, hey, were they relieved that it's over? Let's move on. Yeah, you're right. Nobody can get inside their heads.
I think they were surprised. Remember, they were told they were going to be going into this case till March, right? And so for them, that both sides have officially rested, I would imagine that they're surprised. There was some surprise from the reporters. Remember, it should be noted the jury was told yesterday they'll have until March 6th to continue to finish their deliberations. But I don't think it's going to last that long. I think they were surprised that it's been wrapped up. We did think we were going to hear from witnesses like Warren Light. He was not called. Perhaps they were wondering whether additional people were going to be called, but not the case. Both sides have rested.
Yeah, I was a little concerned at first when the judge threw out that March 6th end date because it put this artificial pressure on the whole process. But now, as things have unfolded more quickly than maybe some anticipated, there's plenty of time. This jury can sit and stew all over the weekend and then get to business on Monday. Let me ask you this about the closings, and then I'll let you go because apparently you're about to be arrested. There's some noise going on back there. The defense will go first. Is that right? Is that the way this closing was laid out?
Very different than what we've seen. The defense is going to go first on Thursday. I don't know if they have a time limit or not by how long they can go. But they are going to go on Thursday, then the prosecution on Friday. You can see I'm losing my tent right here, guys. And then they're going to have till Friday. So both sides are split up. Not every time we see that. We see sometimes in one day we hear closings from the prosecution, and the defense, but they're going to split it up into 2 days. We believe Donna Rotuno on Thursday, Jonah Luzzi on Friday. I'm about to lose my tent. The rain is about to pour on me.
Okay,
So,
we'll let
these
you
guys
go
have been
there.
So nice.
Okay, well, when you're losing your tent, that's you got to pack it in. Jesse, thank you so much. Great work as always. Appreciate it. And we know that as this closing chapter continues, you'll be right there to fill us in on what's happening. Thanks again, Jesse Weber, down at the courthouse there for the Harvey Weinstein matter, getting rained on and everything. So we're going to take a quick break. Coming back, other cases in the mix here at the network. The pardon case out of Ohio. We've got the Hess case out of Texas, and a brand new case about to start up in Iowa. So stay where you are. This is the Law and Crime Network.